Hi guys, and welcome back to Let's Talk Nerdy. Now this is part 3. I can't believe we've been sitting here this long talking about it. Part 3 of our talk on Dungeons and Dragons and or just tabletop RPGs in general. Who am I?
Yeah.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Joshua.
Oh right. I should probably... if
know
they're
this.
at this part, do you think they know
I don't know
we
who you are.
guys?
I need to be introduced. Come on.
You don't know who I am? That's a little weird considering the things we do at night. You don't know who I am?
Yeah, playing board games and stuff.
Oh yeah, Animal Crossing, we're going to be doing that later.
Oh yeah. You convinced me to get it. Yeah.
So this is part 3.
Yeah, part 3. This is going to be this, that, and other.
Now, we talked a lot about Roll to Die in the past too.
Yes.
A lot. I didn't intend on it being as centered on our Open Legends campaign. Because this is a D&D video, but whatever. So now we're going to be talking about this other game that we're playing. We're going through... It's Dragon Heist, right?
It's actual D&D. 5e. It's
5e,
Dragon
we're
Heist
playing Dragon
Waterdeep.
Heist. It's awesome. And
Who's the bad guy? We don't know. I have a secret suspicion, though, but who cares?
Who knows? And we got to create characters together.
Yep.
And it's so weird that you're not my DM because you were my only DM for so long. So now it's Keaton's game and Keaton's DMing, and we decided we were going to make a couple of characters for that. And it started with your character.
Yep, I wanted to make a bard because I like bards.
You do like
tell
bards.
I like
You
bards,
play
guys.
bards a lot.
I write stories. I like songs. I like creating things. Bards make sense for a character class for me. And the fact of the matter was that last time I got to play a bard, it didn't really last a long time. But I decided to play a bard, but I decided because Jack Bones was a character that was now suffering with another campaign, now as an NPC status, and that's perfectly fine, that I wanted to make a new player character, and I decided I was going to make one of the weirdest combinations of class and race.
And it's very challenging because you are very squishy.
So I went with bard.
Yes.
Kobold.
Yes. And introduce yourself here, Jingling.
Well, hello there. My name's Jingling, and I'm the cutest, and that's not up for debate.
Jingling is a little pink kobold, a small draconic creature who's usually known for rooting through people's underground garbage disposals and taking things and trying to stab them and trying to worship dragons.
They're usually
like
cannon fodder.
They're very much cannon fodder.
They're usually cannon fodder.
But I have me a little bit of a love for the little guy in a lot of different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. This is also kind of partially an influence from TFS at the Table.
Not a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I made Jingling with a big story and all sorts of other stuffs, and I was just I can play her in a bunch of different campaigns, but someone said Dragon Heist, I was like, I'd like to bring her along because that would be hilarious for her, because she's meant to be sort of like a very sweet, endearing character. Lots of comic relief, too.
Yeah. But her ultimate goal is that she wants to be a dragon.
Mm-hmm. Her story has a mixture of a little bit of sadness to it, a little bit of despair, but it's also along the lines of, it was just a revelation that happened, and she kind of got kicked out of the town that she lived in. So she started traveling. She picked up some instruments. She could play pretty well. Mm-hmm. She learned that playing these instruments helps her power out. Because at first she thought it was like a sorceress sort of thing, but it turns out she's actually a bard. Mm-hmm. And so she's been traveling the roads, and she tries playing in different towns, but the fact of the matter is, she's still a fucking kobold, and there are people out there who still fucking hate kobolds because racial discrimination is a thing in D&D. My god.
So she got herself into a little bit of scrape, and that's where my character comes in.
And I remember you saying that when I told you about the concept of Jingling, you said you wanted to make a character that kind of was partnered with her.
Yeah, I wanted to make a character that one of her concerns would be to help Jing. And
thus the third game in a row with a Dragonborn character came to life.
Yeah. So this is the first time I played a Dragonborn, and I decided I wanted to do a class I hadn't done before, and kind of inspired by Bo from Critical Role. I was like, holy shit, she's a monk, but she doesn't have to be.
And with a bit of assertion and like approval from myself, I also went, yeah, you should try monks.
So I tried monks, and I was like, okay, she's a monk.
Monks are easy.
I was like, okay, so she's a monk. She probably should have something that she worships or some sort of god she's into. And I researched dragon gods because, once again, I'm still, like, I haven't done a lot of research into D&D lore purely because I didn't want it to interrupt or allow me to metagame so much in my current campaigns. But this time I was like, okay, I'll do some research into it. And I found a goddess named Halal. And the dragon goddess Halal is sort of a trickster goddess. And she's also sort of like a patron of the arts. And inside my head, I came up with this concept of a monk who's really good at hitting people, but has no other talents. Like, she's not particularly witty. She's not particularly good at acting or singing or playing an instrument. And the temples of Halal are entertainment spaces. Mm-hmm. They're usually found in the backs of taverns or in big operatic spaces. And her backstory is somebody just literally dropped her off there, and they still haven't figured out whether or not that was a prank. Because she has no talent. She has no talent. So, when she came of age, when normally, young people would be starting, like, their careers, because she had spent all that time training, almost like a geisha trains, all that time training and not finding anything she's good at all, they gave her a bag full of pamphlets, some food, and sent her out in the world and said, you can come back when you have a talent. In the meantime, just spread the word of Halal and get people to come and watch our shows and enjoy the entertainment. So basically, she's walking around with, like, playbill pamphlets that she tries to hand out to people to get to come to that temple and enjoy shows. So a lot of people, like, they think it's just religious rhetoric and they'll just crumple it and throw it to the ground. But if they actually read it, they'd be like, here's the entertainment we provide. Come see us. Come rejoice with Halal. And she's not very good at selling them either, because, like I said, she's not particularly witty, and she's not particularly, like, good in social situations. So she's out there, she's handing these pamphlets, and she sees off in the distance that there's this little kobold getting into some shenanigans and some shit with some people, and they're bullying her pretty hard. Another thing that Halal does not like is bullies. So she decides she's going to stand up for the little one, and she handles her business, and she kicks their asses. She helps the kobold up, and the guards show up, and they're like, what the fuck's going on? And then the kobold was like, bail. So she bailed, because what else are you going to do in that situation? So she just followed the kobold, and they just kind of ran. And when they were hiding, they decided that they were going to stick together for a little while, especially after she heard part of Jingling's backstory, which I won't say now, but it did make her even more protective of this little kobold who seems to have had a rough go of it. And she also sees that Jingling is very talented. She can sing, she can dance, she is witty, she's good at getting people to listen to her. So she thinks that if she hangs out with this little kobold long enough, maybe some of that will rub off on her, and she'll be able to go home and be with her temple family. Mm-hmm. So those are the two people that we've created, and we've played 2 sessions with, and things are already crazy.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, ever since showing up, Jingling has basically tried to play with people, get some money, entertain some other folks.
I've been handing out pamphlets. Like, we're doing our thing right now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, because if you look at our character builds and then you look at what the campaign is, we don't fit at all. Like, this is not our area at all.
Modules are usually constructed to be open-ended for a lot of things, but I think Keaton's doing a fine
job. He's doing a good job. I'm having fun.
It's like, we could use a little bit of comedic flair and stuff.
Yeah.
But we understand that there's danger and
consequences for
and
things.
Stuff in that. And Belle has been pretty handy, and I keep leaning back, going, try this, mm-hmm. and because you're new to monks and you haven't really studied it, so it's
I didn't realize you could hit twice in one go, which has been fun.
Yeah, monks get to start off with, all right, I'm going to hit this guy and then I'm going to punch him,
Yeah.
And, well, I've made sure that you know about that. Can I throw a dart and do this? No. Oh, okay. And you're slowly learning this process, which has been really fun.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I just remembered I gotta help you with the character sheet later.
Yeah, we leveled up last night. You gotta help me level up.
But I love that you decided to do some research on this stuff and you found halal. I'm sitting here going, that's fucking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've never tried to make a purely comical character before.
Yeah.
So I was like, and this might be coming from Zephyr having so much to be anxious about right now that I was just like, okay, there's a new campaign going on. It's not recorded. I can have fun with this. I can just relax and play the game. I'm going to make a funny character.
Mm-hmm.
And Belle was born out of that. And then we accidentally made Jingle Bell, which is hilarious.
And yeah, so the two of them are a dynamic duo. They will do things. One will insult you, and the other will punch you.
Yep.
And I love still the idea that these two have just started their adventure and they're trying to get something out of it. And I'm like, I love the fact that Belle is hanging out with Jingling in order to try to discover some things. And Jingling, as much as he's like, everyone will bow down to me, everyone will give me all their treasures,
and
because
their
I will be
piggyback rides.
Amazing. When
Tremble upon my hoard.
During the last session, two party members went down.
Oh yeah.
In one fight.
I got shot.
Jingling, and I made sure that when I made this character, because she still has that selfish kobold streak in her. For level 1, she does not have any healing spells.
Nope.
And
you weren't considering getting any for level 2 either.
She had Bane to make people miss. She had Charm Person, Disguise Self, and shoot, I forget what the other stuff is. But she also has like Prestidigitation and Mage Hand because she's short. She needs to get stuff off of high shelves.
And in this situation that you're talking about, our healer had gotten taken down by a fucking mind devourer.
An intellect devourer.
An intellect devourer.
An intellect devourer is a brain on legs.
Yeah. And it went a munchin' on his breeding brain.
So, yeah, out of game, I knew what sort of danger this possessed, and I was terrified for it, because I knew this was about to be an instant death situation.
But in-game... I was terrified of it, because it's a walking brain.
Yeah. So, our healer had already used up all of his spell slots, and went down in one turn, and he had used healing on Jingling earlier and had kept her up a couple of times as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
the healer goes down.
The healer goes down, and I'm thinking in my head, I go, okay, I know there's a way to keep people from dying even if you don't have healing magic. So the kobold, thinking selflessly as much as possible, ran over. And basically, there's a technique called, like, stabilize.
Mm-hmm.
You basically have to roll a death saving throw for the other person. And if you get higher than a 10, you stabilize them and they're not dying anymore. They're still unconscious. So I managed to stabilize him.
While that's going on, let's just say a Squidbeard was at the end of there and had like made eye contact with Q, who's essentially our leader right now. And she made eye contact with that person and then like left. And then Q was in the back, just kind of like frozen. And Belle notices, and Belle thinks like the fighting's over, like the brainy thing is dead, and like everything seems to be stopped, and I just wanted to congratulate Q on that wonderful shot she made earlier, and you seem a bit vacant, Ramirez. Are you alright? Are you alright? And then she just starts tapping her on her face. I specifically said not hard enough to hurt her.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that one of the ways you can break somebody out of the hold of a mind flayer is to do damage to them. But sometimes you gotta think differently in character. And in character, she's not trying to hurt her. She's just trying to wake her up. And then Q shot her in the chest with a crossbow bolt. Like, dead, like fucking dead to rights. The full force of the crossbow bolt just straight into her heart. And Belle drops That was all. I had not gotten damage the entire campaign so far. I had been untouched.
And one good hit.
And then one good hit, just down on the ground. Back to Jingling.
So that happens, and to remind you that was thankfully not enough damage to instantly kill you, but
No.
having the strongest fighter on our team suddenly just boom and take out one of our party members, that was concerning. So me and the last standing and sane party member run over to our brainwashed one. I'm out of spell slots, and unfortunately the other player, who is playing to his character, mind you, doesn't know these people well enough, is going to kill.
Oh yeah, that was
because threat
Aegis.
detected.
And Aegis is played by the same person who plays Caltrin.
And bless his heart, because he went for a stab,
And he
missed, but he wound up like standing off on the side. And thank fuck I took Kobold for my race, because
you had pack tactics.
Kobolds have pack tactics, which means if an ally is harrying an opponent within in their melee range, if you get on in there, you have advantage on attack. So I describe it, and I go, I'm going with the blunt hilt of my rapier, trying to knock her out or something. And I roll like a 20 something or other, and we're level 1 characters. It's obviously it's going to hit.
Yeah.
And it hits her, and they, thank Christ, Keaton said with advantage, because that was a natural 1 and a natural 20.
Yeah.
And Q broke
so you
out of the mind blank. And
dropped her crossbow immediately.
And there was some quick patching up. Jingling managed to save 2 lives by means of stabilizing them. The dwarf and her so far her best friend, and convinced the others to carry the bodies for her, because obviously she's a tiny kobold. There's no way.
And so now that has changed your plans for your character.
And that has brought into question, like, do I really want to go through this process for my character, or do I think this would be a stronger method for her down the road? And I'm sitting between sessions thinking about my spell sheet, going, do I really need this stuff? Would this be better? How would this help out? And then I also have to stop and reflect, like, but what would Jingling have?
Also, would Jingling after this be thinking about, there's got to be other ways I can help in this situation, other than just barely stabilizing my friends?
And I've already determined that over the course of the next sessions, she's going to speak with the dwarf to learn healing magic and try to get an idea of how that works, so she can fashion it herself. Because she has a little bit of herb blood in her. And it also called into the fact that I was going to have her go into the College of Glamour, which is a big magic-infused performances.
Look at me.
I'm so glorious, and I'm like, but would these other subclasses be a better fit? And I'm struggling with that now. Because I want to play the character like I feel like she should be played.
Well, and here's the thing. You gotta remember, the same way Zephyr didn't start out the way she is now. Maybe Jingling is going to go through a similar process. It doesn't mean she can't take that step later and still be able to essentially do College of Glamour stuff. You know?
So, we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how
She's
that
still
goes.
level 2, so.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a level 2 monk now. You have key points.
Woo! I have no idea how to use those.
You can punch 3 times in a row now.
Yay! That's all I need to know. So, we talked about our new D&D characters. What are some concepts of things that you've been mulling over that don't necessarily fit into the Roll to Die campaign, but you would love to see, love to do, or love to put into a different campaign?
There's a lot of character ideas that have come up, and since we've gotten so much into D&D lately, I've been fascinated by all the Unearthed Arcana stuff that people have been putting out for that sort of thing, because it's very interesting things that they go, like the bar colleges. I'm fascinated by that new paladin subclass that they have, the Oath of Heroism.
Yeah.
Which basically is, I need to be a shining example of how awesome people can be, and lead them to that example of shining awesomeness. And I'm like, I want to make the broliest of all paladins.
So like Gaston, if he wasn't a dick.
Yes, Gaston, if he was blonde, or I don't know.
Or if he just wasn't an asshole.
Hercules and Gaston's love child.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, and it's along the lines of like I'm really interested in stuff, and there was mention of a new warlock patron that was a genie folk.
Oh.
And genies are a big thing in D&D as well. They're kind of like a weird abstract from different planes of elements sort of thing. And they're the avatar elements. Yeah. Excuse me.
It's alright, I'll cut it out.
Thank you. And one of the warlock, the concept for the warlock class is that at level 1, they already have a flavoring for their character based on their class, and that's their patron. That's basically the guy who gives them their powers and how they're getting that powers. So, for instance, you have the fiend. It can be an archdevil. It can be a demon. It can be a rakshasas, if you will. All sorts of like unearthly, like evil things that are like, yes, do this. You could be a celestial warlock. Some holy being is providing you with this power despite whoever you are, as long as you signed a pact to them. There's archfey. There's fucking there's obviously Cthulhu.
There's not Cthulhu trademark.
Yeah, there's more that they're working on, which is like deep sea creatures.
Yeah.
And all sorts of other different things. But like one of the making the genie one, and the thing with the warlock class is that they're so inherently flavored and variable, because every other class is like, all right, I have my magic because of this, I have my magic because of this, and warlocks are like, I can have my magic for any of these reasons, and then further down the line, I can fashion to all these different ways.
So you had an idea for a new warlock.
So
right?
I suddenly got stricken with the I had this wild brain like epiphany moment where I was sitting there going, man, it'd be weird if the Terminator was in Faerun. And I stopped and I thought, and I was like,
well, how would that work?
And then a lot of people fashion Eldritch Blast as like doing finger guns at people sometimes, and I sat and I thought, what if they were like Star Wars blaster shots? And then I was like, but what if you were time traveling, or what if you had this and that and the other? And I said, sci-fi is an excellent addition that you can bring to this. And this all led until I'm working on making a new D&D patron, and it's a machine. It is, and the thing that terrifies me of it is when a patron is established for the D&D setting for the class,
mm-hmm.
It doesn't say is specifically this. It says you can have a fiend for your patron, a celestial, all these sort of options. You can obviously say Cthulhu, but there's a grand sort of different ones for that.
And then, when you bring in the sci-fi element, it could be anything from aliens to time
mm-hmm.
travel to it brings in this whole other element to the play.
And I was sitting there going, I want a machine patron, because that would be such a different flavor of nacho chips.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about
that's
warlocks.
What you want. Yeah,
warlocks are
new flavor.
Warlocks are different flavored chips.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting thing. Is like, yes, they're warlocks, but I am spicy nacho. I am white chocolate. I am all sorts of different things, and they're all tasty. Like warlocks are tasty burritos or something like that. I don't know. And
you're hungry. We haven't eaten dinner yet.
No, we haven't. I don't even think we've had lunch.
We had a quick lunch before we started this 4 hours ago.
But the idea was that I wanted, because all these patrons are usually of a cross-dimensional, different plane sort of being, and I was like, I want that to happen, so I need something that's unearthly to be giving its power to this. And so I determined I wanted a machine. I want a machine to make a pact with a being, because they are the best equated fit for them.
So you have a Machina god.
So, I mean, imagine just you're down at the river and doing laundry or fishing or something, and a particularly shiny stone catches your eye. You're like, maybe I can sell this at the market. And then it comes forward on 3 legs and like looks at you with this bright red eye.
Or even like you pick it up and it's nanos, and it just melts into your hand, into your skin, and then you have to deal with that.
Yeah,
now.
it stabs you, or
something,
or it crawls around and plants itself at the base of the back of your neck. And
and if you're a person of Faerun who has never seen technology of this level, it still looks like magic to you. It still feels like magic to you.
Or you find a device and you and I think the biggest joke that you could obviously have with this new patron is not reading the user terms for the agreement.
Like not using the agreement terms and not really understanding
because
anything.
a lot of creators say sometimes the warlocks don't know exactly what the terms are of your pact. And I think it's funny to have a user agreement terms of service sort of thing comes in, and you're like, okay, sure, now you have magic powers, and they're like, sweet, wait, what does it want from me? And in sci-fi you have a fucking goddamn store full of different machines for all different sorts of things.
It's absolutely endless.
Does a machine want good? Does a machine want bad? Is it trying to solve something? Is it trying to play a game?
Does it want to learn?
Exactly.
Is it just observing? Is it...
So this patron, is it from a different timeline? Is it from the future? Is it from the past?
Is it from a different world?
Is it from a different world? Is it from a different dimension? Where is
Another
it from?
universe, parallel
this
universe.
Is such an open-ended, awesome scenario that I've come up with, and I'm so excited for it. And in the hands of like
a good DM, it could be really cool.
And it still runs in tandem with the idea of having spell slots. It's basically just bits of energy.
It won't be overpowered because there are ways to balance it, and you can still have it and have it not necessarily be the focus. It could it's just like any other deity or power. You work it into the campaign amongst everything else.
Yeah. And the idea and like level 3, you get the pacts, which are basically, or like the like solidify what your pact is, or how it fashions itself to your power. So like the 3 standard ones are the blade, the chain, and the book. And excuse you.
My bad. Ugh. God, we went grocery store shopping today, and now I got the coughs.
You've been coughing for a while. We should get
No, it's
Nyquil.
because we should get
Makes the coughing stop.
Yeah.
I didn't set up the joke. Anyways,
I know the joke, though.
But the idea behind it is that now all these magic spells are flavored in ways that are mechanical. So when you raise your hand to use Eldritch Blast, like you can fashion in all sorts of different like mechanical sci-fi ways, like a resonant sonic pulse comes out, or a bright flare of light, or your finger literally fires off laser blasts, or...
And if you want to do this, but you want to have a more, like, horror-centric version of it, you just start doing body horror.
Yeah.
You know, your hand changes and molds in ways you never thought it would.
Your hand clicks open to reveal, like, a strange exoskeletal compartment inside your flesh and fire something.
Or it could be just as clean and pretty to fit a more, like, Fae run campaign. Now you're just, instead of, like, an itty-gritty 90s Terminator, you're like an Apple product. You just, like, you shine and shimmer.
Yep. When you cast, someone gets a grievous injury, you cast regeneration on someone. Your mechanical things start creating them a new prosthetic limb that acts and feels like the old thing.
Or it pops up and has that super futuristic, you know how like Space Marines have like that gel that they spray on and then it kind of like forms and helps you heal. Like you could totally do something like that and flavor it that way.
There's so many different ways to flavor it. And I think and the biggest thing is that I feel that the Warlock is probably one of the easiest ways to bring an element of sci-fi into this world, because it's just the way it can be flavored. Because Pact of the Blade, you basically pick a weapon and you form a pact with it, and that is your go-to weapon. That's like how what's his name, Ford does stuff in Critical Role.
Yep.
He's Pact of the Blade, and he has been picking up new weapons, and it keeps coming out as a particular sort of blade. Fashioned with a machine, it's you scan a weapon for an hour or so, and then suddenly you can just summon it.
Kind of like T-Wig, where she scans animals in Roll With Me.
Yeah, because she's a druid. And then, like, if you're a Pact of the Chain, you can summon up different monsters to fight for you. and you just make little robotic iterations of that particular monster, and you just use similar abilities, and they evoke the same sort of stuff. Or the Pact of the Tome, you have a fucking tablet.
Right?
That has extra spells for you and like methods of how to do all this sort of stuff and information.
It charges in the sun. Like you just have to recharge it.
Yeah, it's solar charged, or it has various ways of charging, and
you could feed it blood. Maybe it takes blood. I don't know.
Yeah, and
like
if you
plasma.
And it actually does state that if you die, it disintegrates. And there's a lot of different stuff and unique things, and I'm still trying to work with the name. I really like the fragment.
I like the fragment
as the idea for the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Although I might just have to come down and call it the machine for
Machina.
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 The Machina is
God from the machine. Machina.
Mm-hmm. And so I think Machina is probably the best term for that.
Mm-hmm. The fragment could be how the person who has made the pact is.
The warlock for the Machina would be referred to as the fragment, or the insertion, or
whatever
the base, the connection, something along those lines. And that's the fun thing, is that with this machine patron, because we have so much technology now in our everyday lives and so much sci-fi as well, you can flavor, like we said, the body horror or the different sort of things.
It can go in any different direction.
You can pull up like sleek, like Minority Report, or polygons of mirror shards that like appear and you deflect blows with them.
I mean, it's very easy to find pretty much any other genre in Faerun. You go one direction, you get like the uber fantasy with the fae and the butterflies and the unicorns, and you turn down another street, you get fucking Strahd and the hammer horror and the gothic, and then you turn, you can even go to a certain part and like get westerns and all this other stuff. Sci-fi isn't like, it's there, but it's not as in there. Usually you have to go to like fucking Pathfinder to find that sort of stuff in lore.
And there's plenty of like sort of spacefaring stuff in D&D. There's Spelljammer stuff, the Nautilus that you can see in like Baldur's Gate 3.
But nothing to this level.
But nothing to this extreme. And that's the thing that I love, is that the Warlocks is a class that goes, I have all these powers. Okay, what'd that cost you? I have no fucking clue.
I don't know. I just saw a shiny rock and it melted into me.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of, there's so many ways you could fashion this. Quite honestly, we see this sort of thing every day now. The user terms agreement thing as a pact. And
then like you know how sometimes warlocks have the patron whispering in their ear? It's a fucking AI system that came with the shiny rock.
It is a machine. It is not a living being from some other time. It's not an organic thing, but it is fused with you, and it has something that it wants. And it could try to dance around the subject. It could be very blunt, or it could speak in fragmented sentences.
It could be slightly damaged.
It could
not
be
know
binary.
Why it's there. It could be binary. It could be slightly damaged and not really know why it's there either, and just kind of like try to figure things out with you. Like it
could be the Iron Giant.
It could be the Iron Giant. It could be Venom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be like Venom.
It could be like Venom, like not a parasite, but like
Venom. The idea would be it was still very much a mechanical thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
good lord,
the possibilities are endless. Okay.
I use disguise self, and then I'd shift around you, and you're just like,
Well, we have a little bit more time in this part. I was thinking, as one last thing we can talk about, I think it's important that if you're running D&D or if you're involved in D&D, it's good to watch other shows, as inspiration, but also just to keep it fun. What kind of shows do you recommend? I know there's a few that we enjoy.
We've already talked about Critical Role.
The Critical Role is kind of the obvious one. That's like porn for people who play D&D.
Yeah,
as far as like
that is our Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, that is our situation where we're like
4 hour long Saturday morning cartoon on Thursday nights.
It doesn't get better than that. I could talk all day about that. But as far as like less well known,
TFS at the Table had a pretty good run. Mike Landis or Nick Landis has another show called Roll With Me.
That one's
that
pretty
he runs
good.
with
I
some of his
love
friends. If you don't know who that is, he's one of the voice actors for Team 4 Star. The guys who made DBZ Abridged, rest in peace. And there are maybe a few other shows here and there that are pretty good.
If you can find...
You can also watch Roll to Die.
You could watch Roll to Die.
A show that we make.
A show that we make every week, and it's run in Open Legend. So should you ever want to know how that runs versus D&D, that's a good way. I don't think a lot of people run shows.
Open Legend is pretty easy to not care about a lot of rules.
And if you can find the old TFS at the table shows, that's pretty good.
I really need to watch the remainder of Escape from the Bloodkeep, because that's a good way to run.
Yeah?
Like that was a little bit of a comedy troupe doing an evil player campaign, but in the sense of they're all slapsticky Saturday morning villains.
Yeah. And then, of course, I would be remiss not to mention there is a tabletop podcast that I do art for, called Tabletop for the End of the World. And they're kind of different from the sort of traditional setup. You're not going to see them playing on a board. They have like this sort of meta-narrative thing going on where they're playing tabletop at the end of the world, and shenanigans ensue. So there's like the end of the world narrative, and then there's like the D&D setting, and they cut in between, and it's very edited down. So it's not like you're going to sit there and watch them play the game for 4 hours. It's a very edited down version. So if you're new to listening to D&D, it's a good way to kind of like get a feeling for it. But if you're a little bit more hardcore and you're looking for the actual gameplay aspect, like, you know, hearing people talk, listen to one of the shows we mentioned, and definitely give our show a chance. I would love to see more people commenting and telling us about stuff. So, yeah. But definitely, if you find a show you like, listen to it. Use it for inspiration. You've had characters cameo every once in a while.
I have.
Yeah.
The Natural Wonders have appeared in the campaign.
Nedra beat the shit out of our guys, and then they kicked her butt.
Yep, they won the challenge. Tommen from Roll With Me has appeared already. The Wandering Weasel that popped up in
He helped us set up our tavern.
Yep.
Bless you. And we haven't had any Critical Role people in, and I think it's because it'd be too obvious.
Yeah, it's one of those like, okay,
we'll keep
they
these
kind of
separate.
wouldn't fit all that well.
No, especially seeing as this is post-apocalyptic Faerun, and they're in a completely different thing.
Yeah, so. Well, in
any case, do you have any final thoughts on advice as far as like, or any? What are your final thoughts on like D&D in general? Like, how has your life changed since finding D&D and finding the sort of like tabletop camaraderie?
I feel like I've actually grown much closer to my friends. Mind you, this prospect might not work with everyone. Not everyone is into this sort of thing, but I cannot tell you the amount of nights I've spent into the wee hours of the morning talking about character concepts, about already established characters, and talking about things that can be done, and hinting at things that might happen, and then just being like, you really should see what the future holds for you, and having plans, but also trying to envelop and embrace what players want to do with their characters, but also providing them like revelations and shocks and twists that they might not see coming.
Yeah.
And that's the game. And if you're a player, and if your GM is trying their hardest to make things fun for you,
lean into it.
Lean into it. Embrace the chaos. And just, this is a game. Try to have fun. And you're supposed to be having fun with friends or a party. It is not you versus the GM. It is not the GM versus the players.
No, we're all playing together.
The GM is, yes, the GM is final boss, but he's also their biggest cheerleader. And that is quite possibly one of the healthiest sort of relationships that you can hope for.
Yeah, I don't think I could ask for better people to play with. They all have such different personalities, and they all bring something cool to the table. And it's kind of cool now that we're playing in D&D as well, because their characters are different, but the essence of each person is still there. And it's almost been a kind of like therapy, because when things are shitty in real life, we have the game, man, and we can disappear into that for a little while, and we all feel a little better at the end of the day having played, except for the nights where I almost die, and then I have to go take a nap and eat a cookie. But it's fine.
If your players are if you're a GM, your players are always talking about how excited they are for changes to their characters to happen, I feel like that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Talk to each other. That's another thing.
Oh yeah, talk out of game about the game. It helps. Alright, well I guess that'll conclude part 3 of our D&D series. Should you guys want to hear us rattle on about more D&D stuff, or have suggestions for stuff we should talk about, please leave that down in the comments for future episodes. I think the next one we might do, we just finished The Mandalorian, and that would be cool to talk about. Or even like Gravity Falls, or whatever other nerdy thing we happen to be into.
Yeah.
Alright, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye.
Bye!